So you know, we don't want to say that, and I don't think dystopian fiction actually gives us this, that the subjugation of nature is entirely bad. Right? The cultivation of land, the desire to, you know, to advance medicines, or, you know, in the case of and even the Birthmark, right? In using science to learn new things, but what you do with that, right, is what dystopian literature is really questioning. And I said that there was, you know, within the current sort of canon or corpus of dystopian fiction, there are these great omens about maybe where we're headed, and I do think that in many ways we're headed these places. But I do think that there's actually hope within them, because the very fact of dystopian literature says that on our consciousness is this real fear that we'll do these things to ourselves. And these are the stories, right? These are the narratives that are placed in our minds, and they are narratives of caution. They really are narratives of caution. So while I think the culture is ugly and bad and in many ways headed in the wrong direction, I think it's always been doing that, by the way. I don't think we're any worse or any better than our ancestors. But we do have these incredible means, post-industrialization, to imprison ourselves within things that we think are good for ourselves more than I think our ancestors were able to do. And that I'm willing to be pushed back. I mean, I think it would be great to hear that that's actually not the case. But dystopian literature itself, I see currently, and I think there almost isn't a movie, a blockbuster movie, that isn't dystopian fiction at this point. I almost can't think of one that's in the theaters right now, and I'm talking about summer blockbusters that aren't really about some sort of subjugation by machinery, whether that machinery comes from another galaxy, right, or that machinery comes from within. It's all over the place. The question is why? Why is this heightened so much over the past, say, 20 years, even? Where it seems to be that where maybe you would get a film here and there once every 5 years that provocatively dealt with these ideas, or somebody tried to make 1984, or, you know, or Fahrenheit 451, or, you know, some of those weird things that they were doing in the 70s. Now, you can expect to get trilogies or longer of films year after year after year that deal with this. And I think it's because we're potentially getting to this tipping point, right, where we see our ability to do things that even 20 years ago seemed like utter fiction to us, in the way that we can manipulate genes, in the way that we can really live a life of almost absolute isolation. You can live on powders and pills, you know, and processed foods. And people do this, but they do this. And so the dystopian literature, I'll end on this, dystopian literature, I think, is a response and a caution to, just as I would say, you know, small farms, right, and people eating raw milk or drinking raw milk and wanting to go to local shops, right, is a reaction, right, to industry and mass production and processes. And so I think we always find this balance, and I want to say that as I've read The Birthmark, and as I've read again, as I've read The Machine Stops Again, it's quite amazing to see how quickly the artists will see these things and immediately pounce on them. And I think it would be great if we had authors that were writing like this today, but I think we just have to be happy with the fact that we've got directors that are making movies that at least are getting into the consciousness of the youth today, that there's something deeply disordered about our love of industry, of power, of machinery, and our desire to transcend ourselves, to not be contingent within nature.